This morning's special guest for convocation is no stranger to Jesuit and certainly no stranger to the Tampa Bay area. He's the owner of J&J Site Development, a philanthropic construction company, supports apostolic works all over the world, from Guatemala, Kenya, and India, all the way to the Philippines. His pro-life witness has inspired countless people across the country, but also been the recent subject of a TV documentary. His extended convocation this morning will cover a variety of very important but difficult topics, and we're excited to have him back on campus since his last convocation here almost 2.5 years ago. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Jeff Joaquin.
Good morning, young man. I was reading in the second letter of Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 5 to 10. St. Paul speaks of two different things. He speaks of thorns in his flesh, and he thinks of boasting of his weaknesses. And I'm 55 years old. I've been going to church for 55 years, and I never understood that scripture passage until God set me on this journey for the last 5 years. Because it's really boasting of my weaknesses that has helped me come out of the darkness and into the light of God's mercy. And I hope it does the same for you. Everything I'm going to talk about today, they're very difficult topics, but I want to give you a permission slip to come out of your personal darkness and into the light. Because ultimately, it's the mercy of God that healed me. And it's the mercy of God that'll heal you. So you ready to get started? The first thorn in my flesh is alcohol abuse. When I was 9 years old, I was sitting in my parents' kitchen, and my grandfather walked in the room. And he had a little shot of brown liquid. I didn't know what it was. He said to me, "Would you like to take a sip?" I'm looking at my grandfather. I mean, he's not going to try to lead me down the wrong path. So I took the little shot glass that he had, and I took a sip of it. And it was brandy. At 9 years old, young man, I knew I was an alcoholic. 9 years old. I have an older brother by the name of Mark, 5 years older than me. So when I got into high school, probably 8th grade, he started buying me, I'd let him know on Friday afternoon what I wanted to drink for the weekend, and he'd get it for me. So I started drinking on a regular basis at the age of 13 years old. 13. Anybody in here 13? Most of you are all 14 or 15, right? Freshmen. 13 years old, started drinking alcohol. I remember vividly the first time I drank alcohol, because it was right next to the football field that I'd make so many memories years down the road at. I got a 6-pack of beer, and I drank all 6 beers, not knowing any different, in about 25 minutes. Needless to say, my head was spinning like no tomorrow, threw up a number of times, but that was the beginning of my abuse period with alcohol. As I entered into high school, I'd start getting hard liquor from my brother. I can remember vividly one time ordering a 5th of Southern Comfort and drinking it at a bonfire party. I think I was 14 years old. The only memorable part about that night was I drank the whole thing in about 5 or 10 minutes. And I think I passed out and I fell into the bonfire. My brother had a very difficult time explaining that to my mother when we got home, and half of the hair off my head was burnt off. Alcohol. Into my high school years, I drank on a regular basis. Usually started Thursday night, drank right through the weekend. 2 times in high school, I got a driving while under the influence charge. Twice in high school. Didn't get any better in college. I got 1 in college. So before I was 21 years old, young man, I had gotten 3 driving while under the influence charges, and I was a full-blown alcoholic before the age of 21. Before I was legally able to drink in the state of Massachusetts, I was already an addict. That's the first thorn in my flesh. Because what does St. Paul do? He asked Jesus, he said, can you remove this thorn from my flesh? And what did Jesus say? He said, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is made perfect through weakness. I tried to find God at the bottom of a bottle of alcohol. The only thing that I ever found was the tequila worm. The next thorn in my flesh, 11 years old, at a baseball tournament with my friend Eric. I think we won the tournament that weekend, went back to his house with the entire team. We had a celebration, a cookout. All the parents were there, the kids were there. It was a great time. About 6 o'clock at night, most of the parents were leaving. My parents were there with his parents. They went out to dinner and left me alone with him, Eric, and his younger sister. I think I was 11 years old. He looked at me and he said, you want to watch a movie? I said, sure. Sure he's going to put in some sort of Disney movie, right? Yeah, he put in a movie, all right. It was hardcore pornography. That was 11 years old. I'm 55. I'll let you know when I have that figured out. Been struggling with pornography my whole life. These phones that they give us, right? Young man, what's that in the back of that phone right there? No wrong answers here, young man. What is that? It's an apple with a bite out of it, right? Good answer. So if I understand this process correctly, Mr. Steve Jobs, you invented a device that we can communicate with. But on the back of it, you put the icon of original sin on it. And you gave it to our kids so they could use it. Isn't it interesting that Mr. Steve Jobs, before he died, God rest his soul, never allowed his children to use one of these? Because what's on here, young man? You guys in your generation can look at more naked women in 15 minutes than I did and the generation behind me did in an entire lifetime. Pornography. I didn't come here just to talk about difficult issues. I want to help you through your pornography situation. I'm blessed to be part of 2 organizations, national organizations that deal with men around the country. Hundreds of thousands of men we service with these 2 ministries. The number one issue they have is pornography. I know you young men think it's fun to mess around with it. I can tell you this, of the hundreds of thousands of men that I get to minister to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the number one reason relationships get ruined? Pornography. That's the problem. Let's talk about the solution. If you get a phone handed to you, which I'm sure every single one of you have by now, we gave one to my daughter at 8 years in 8th grade. Step 1, get Net Nanny or Covenant Eyes on the phone. It's only $10, $12 a month, but it'll help you fight the battle. 2, with that software, you get an accountability partner. Every time I look at something I'm not supposed to on my phone, and this is for the older people around the perimeter, you know who gets notified? My wife does, my beautiful wife of 25 years. She knows about my pornography problem, and she could judge me and criticize me and divorce me for it. She could have done that, but she walks with me. Step 3, probably the most important step, pray. Because you've let that thorn go into your flesh, men, and I can promise you it's never going to go away. But with the help and the grace and the mercy of Jesus Christ, you can get through it. But I promise you, this little, you think it is fun now, but it will ruin every relationship that's important to you with members of the opposite sex. Every one it will ruin, men, I promise you. I gave a talk here at a local, I think it was in Florida, a high school. And when I got done, it was co-ed, it wasn't just men. When I got done, the 2 priests that were there asked me to stick around I ended up staying for 3 hours talking to individuals. And we talked about a lot of things, alcohol, drugs. Pornography was the most prevalent, though. And a young lady, 16 years old, I will never forget this. I have a 21-year-old daughter right now. This 16-year-old girl came up. She sat across from me on the picnic table, and she started crying right away. And she said, Mr. Joke, I thank you for bringing up pornography because I can't get anybody to talk to me about it. My parents gave me an iPhone at the age of 8 years old, and I was hooked on hardcore pornography at the age of 10, and I've been struggling every day since then. She said, what these young men make me do for me to get their attention is unthinkable. I met that girl a year later at the chapel in USF, and that young girl now ministers to people at USF for pornography addiction. While we're on that topic, men, let me say this. You do not have to test drive every darn vehicle in the parking lot before you buy one. See, it changed for me when I was sitting in that delivery room because I had done that my whole life. But I was sitting there in the delivery room and my wife was about to give birth to our daughter. Everything changed. My perspective on how to treat women with dignity and honor and respect changed in an instant. And it needs to change for you. You're the future of the Catholic Church. Treat women with dignity and honor and respect. Pornography, you may think it's harmless fun, man. It'll ruin every relationship that's important to you. That's the second thorn in my flesh. Let's talk about the third one, drugs. I already told you I started drinking at 9 years old, consistently at 13 years old. Alcohol is a gateway drug. What's the next gateway drug? Marijuana. What, are they going to legalize it on the ballot this year? All marijuana ever did for me is make me stupid and hungry. But marijuana is a gateway drug too. I was 15 years old, New Bedford, Massachusetts, at a party. It was very busy, very hot, summertime. My friend David and David went on to play college football as well. We were sitting there next to the door which led down to the basement. For those of you who are born and raised in Florida, basement's a floor beneath the ground floor. We went down into the basement. It was pitch black. Turned the corner, looked in the back of the room, and there was a young man sitting right next to a table. And he had a big old pile of white powder on it. And he looked at me and he said, "Would you like to try some?" I looked at my friend David. That was the start of my cocaine addiction. I'm going to give you 2 stories about my cocaine addiction. Fast forward, we talked about high school, played some football in high school, went on to college, ended up being pretty good at it, was a 2-time preseason All-American in college, had the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins come to at least 3 football games. In this one particular instance, it was junior year, and we were playing Springfield College. And by God's graces, I had a particularly good game. After the game, you know ahead of time that the scouts are going to come in and talk to you. They let you know on Monday of the week before the game. So I knew the NFL scout was coming in to talk to me. Probably had a $2, $3, $4 million NFL career. Remember, this was 35 years ago. But that NFL scout decided to go into a different the other opposing team's locker room and talk to 2 of their defensive backs before he came into my locker room. I took offense to that. I looked at my head coach and I said, "If that stupid son of a bitch doesn't show up in 5 minutes, I'm out of here." Those were my words. 10 minutes later, my friends showed up, the guys with all the party favors, the cocaine. I left the locker room. And I also left a $3 million NFL career in that locker room, too. Drugs make your mind, poor decisions, lower your defenses. But that wasn't the end of my cocaine abuse. I used cocaine past college, graduated from college, was still using, drinking, drugging. Fast forward to the age of 24 years old. I had gotten my engineering degree in college. I was working. All of my friends came back to Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and we had a party at Round Hill this particular day. Started drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. The drugs came out about lunchtime, and about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I was so whacked out, I didn't know which way was up. I was still living with my parents at the time, so I went home at about midnight, and I had snorted enough cocaine to kill a rhinoceros. But there I was lying on my parents' den floor, having a cocaine-induced heart attack at the age of 24. The party was just about over, man, for me. And I called my brother up. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, "Bro, I'm sorry I didn't make the NFL. I'm sorry I'm such a drug abuser, but I'm going to die here tonight." And he said, "Jeff, let me call 911. I said, "No, Mark, don't do that." I said, "If this Jesus person is real, one of 2 things are going to happen in the next 5 minutes. I'm either going to die and I'm going to go to meet him in heaven, and that'll be a quick meeting because it'll be the last time I see him because I'd be going to hell, or he's going to save me." And young man, I can tell you, I didn't give Jesus 2 minutes of my life for the first 24 years, but he came into my heart, he came into my life in an instant and saved me from myself. The hound of heaven had caught up to me, and he saved me from myself. I never found Jesus at the end of a line of cocaine or at the end of a joint. Never found him using drugs. Another thorn in my flesh. But you see, man, the alcohol, the drugs, the pornography, what the devil wants to do to you is he wants your conscience to be warped. He wants your good decision-making to be lessened. Okay? Because when I was 17 years old, I was in bad shape with alcohol and drugs. And I got a phone call in July of 1987. This is back when the phones had long cords and you had to walk away from the wall with the phone and not trip over it. It wasn't sitting in your pocket. And it was my girlfriend. See, the devil had prepared me for the decision that I would never forget. Picked up the phone. My girlfriend didn't say hello. There was no pleasantries involved. She said, "We have a problem." And I said, "What is that problem?" I had waited for my father to walk out of the room. And she said, "We're pregnant." And I said, "No, you're pregnant." And I said, "What do you want?" She said, "What do you want to do about it?" I said, "Well, give me 24 hours. I got to think about it a little bit, and then I'll call you back." Well, I called her back, man, 24 hours later. She was looking for me to stand up for her, to defend her dignity, to show her the honor and respect that she deserved. And you know what I did? I told her, "Tell me how much it cost. I'm not ready to be a father. Let's get an abortion." I didn't ask her what her opinion was. I didn't ask her what she felt. I told her, "Set up an appointment and tell me how much it cost." A week later, the local football star, we had to go to Providence, Rhode Island, because I couldn't get caught at the abortion clinic in my town. That ruined my college scholarship and beyond. So we set up an appointment in Providence, Rhode Island. And then the third Friday of July of 1987, I drove my girlfriend down to an abortion clinic in Providence, Rhode Island. Didn't say a single word to her the entire drive down there. Pulled up to the porte-cochere. She got out of the car. She asked me, "Are you going to come in there with me?" And like the coward I was, I said, "Absolutely not." She went in. I pulled into the parking lot. My Chevy Malibu didn't have air conditioning, and it was a hot July afternoon, and boy, was I sweating bullets. And I'll never forget this, man. I remember looking up at the ceiling of my Chevy Malibu, hadn't talked to God about the decision, and I looked up and I knew I was making a grave mortal decision. And I said, "God, is this what hell is going to feel like?" Because I had borrowed $200 from a friend to pay a complete stranger to kill my unborn son. And there hasn't been a day in 38 years, man, that my heart hasn't broken over that decision. I had denied my fatherhood. I had sacrificed my son on the altar of convenience just so I could run around in skin-tight pants and a helmet and play football with a bunch of grown men on Sunday. I killed my son so I could play in the NFL. That breaks my freaking heart. I'm here to provide hope, guys, okay? Isaiah chapter 43, verse 4 says, "You are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you." If you've made that decision, do not be like me and carry it with you for 20, 25 years before you confess it. You go to one of these men that have given up their entire lives for you, and you confess that sin. I know it's easier for you guys now. You don't have to drive an hour and drop your girlfriend off at a clinic. I know how easy it is. I deal with this all the time. These girls go online. There's 50 different websites that they can get chemical abortions from. But don't think for a second, young man, that God doesn't know about that decision that you made. So if you've made it, confess it. If you haven't made it, men, listen. The greatest gift that you will get in your life is your children. If you get rid of them now, I promise you for the rest of your life, you will regret that. 150,000 babies every single day are aborted in the wombs of their mothers. Every day. 20 million people died in World War I. Over 50 million died in World War II. Today, every year, 50 million babies are aborted in their mother's wombs. 50 million, more than World War II. And that involves countries like India and China, so it's a little bit warped. But men, when you get that phone call that you, because of your actions prior to marriage, have created a human being in the womb of your girlfriend, you stand up for that child. You say, yes, I will be a father. The worst decision I made in my life, I still regret it until today. Again, God's mercy. You are precious in His eyes and honored, and He loves you. Confess your sin if you need to. So these thorns in my flesh, right? Fast forward to the age when I was 24 years old. I woke up the next morning from that cocaine-induced heart attack. God had saved my life. So what do you think I'm going to do now? Turn my life over to Him? Join a religious order? Become a monk? No. You know what I decided to do, young men? I decided to pick up another habit. It's called workaholism. What does that mean? It means you work 6 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, 365 days a year, for these little 3-inch by 6-inch sheets of paper with dead presidents on them so that you can be a hero and have your name put up on a building. Well, in my 30s, I did pretty darn good by God's graces. I had access to the private jets. I had a $35 million building. Memberships at every club you could imagine. 3 different houses at one time, all of which were worth more than $1 million. I had everything that this world tells you that's important to you in me. But I had nothing. I'll give you a real quick example. I was at dinner one time with a couple real rich friends. The guy ordered a $5,000 bottle of wine. I didn't even know you could order a $5,000 bottle of wine. He put it up to his nose and smelt it and did whatever it is that he did with it, and he didn't think it was worth $5,000. So what did he do? He gave the waitress a hard time, 1, and 2, he poured the wine on his salad. He said, "This is nothing but salad dressing." See, rich people, men, and I've dealt with them my whole life, they climb the ladder of success like I did, only to find out it was up against the wrong darn wall. There's an old Roman axiom. It says the acquisition of money is like drinking seawater. The more of it you drink, the thirstier you become. Men, if it's your goal to graduate from Jesuit high school and go off to college and make tens of millions of dollars so you can put your name on a damn building, I'm telling you, you will be empty at the end of it, like I was empty at the end of it. Workaholism, the next thorn in the flesh that I succumbed to. Fast forward. I never took God seriously, even though He saved my life, even though He blessed me with a daughter in my 30s. I had never, ever come to grips with the decisions that I had made when I was younger. But at the age of 38, I was sitting in church with my wife and daughter, and a young man, a man small in stature, but a giant in faith, approached the ambo, and he started talking about being an authentic man, an authentic father, an authentic leader of your family. And I made the mistake of looking over at my wife and daughter, and they looked at me and they told me I wasn't that father and husband that they needed. So in my late 30s, I started to take my faith seriously. Decided I was going to do a general confession, spent about 2 months preparing for it. General confession is where you go over the sins of your entire life. I had 38 years worth of sin. I had a notebook full of sins. And I went to Corpus Christi Catholic Church right up here in Temple Terrace. And about 45 minutes into that general confession, men, I had to confess that I had murdered one of his children, my son. I had to confess to the God of the universe that I had killed one of his children. And I broke down in tears like I haven't cried in a long time. And that beautiful priest, when I got done with the confession, and he gave me those beautiful words of absolution, walked out of the confessional in tears. I was in tears. And he threw his arms around me, and he said, "Welcome home, son." See, I had looked for that which I was looking for. I had hunted for 38 years. I did not find Jesus at the bottom of a bottle of alcohol, at the end of a line of cocaine, on the sidelines of an NFL football field. I did not find him in a private jet. I found him in the confessional. And I had realized that this hound of heaven had been looking for me for 38 years. But now that I found him, the songs of Solomon say, "When I found him in whom I love, I took hold of him and I would not let him go." So I've tried, young men, for the last 14, 15 years to be a good man, a good father, a good husband. I've gone to Mass every day for 17 years. I go to confession once a month, maximum. I pray 3 to 4 hours a day. I do all of that not because I'm a good man, but because I know I'm a bad one. See, this hound of heaven took 38 years of sin, and in an instant, gone. That's what he wants to do for you. If you take anything from this talk today, let it be that mercy. He wants to give you mercy, not judgment. Young men, we live in a very difficult time right now. You know this, I know this. We have a very woke culture, a cancel culture, if you will. And they're telling you that your Catholic faith is meaningless and useless. They're telling you that your Catholic faith is outdated. They're telling you that your Catholic faith is not meaningful and impactful in the world today. I know this, men. 55 years of experience. But what I'm looking at today is 900 soldiers for Christ that know that their first step is to reconcile with God, and their next step is to pick up arms. And what does it mean to pick up arms? This is a weapon of mass destruction, man. My wife and I have prayed this every day for the last 20 years because we're defending ourselves against the evil of this world. So dare I say to you, young men, Jesuit, high school, when this world, when this culture tells you that it's okay for a man to participate in women's sports, you know what you tell them? Get behind me, Satan. When this world tells you that unless you sleep with 3 or 4 young ladies before you graduate high school, you're not a man, you tell them, get behind me, Satan. When this world tells you that you have to smoke that joint or do that line of cocaine or drink that bottle of alcohol to be cool, to fit in, you know what you tell them? Get behind me, Satan. When this world tells you that you have to be an All-American or you have to play football on Sunday to be meaningful and be respected in life, you tell them, get behind me, Satan. And when this world tells you that you are not ready to be a father, when this world tells you that you're too young and you're going to sacrifice your future for that unborn baby in your girlfriend's womb, you tell them, get behind me, Satan. Or I promise you, you, like me, will regret for the rest of your life. See, I don't have a son, man. I have a beautiful daughter, and I love her beyond imagination. But I sat in the chapel one day in my mid-30s after we had our daughter, and I was pissed at God because he wouldn't give me a son. And I sat there and I said, Jesus, you know, you're the miracle worker. You can raise Lazarus from the dead. You can heal the blind. You can heal the crippled. But you couldn't give me a son? Man, that was a mistake, man. Because I got punched by Jesus in the spiritual chest like I'd never got punched before. And he said, you do have a son. And he's standing right next to me right now in heaven. And his name is Jonathan Andrew Joquin. I tell you, man, I cried for the better part of 2 days after God gave me that experience. If your girlfriend tells you that you don't have a decision, part of the decision-making process, you beg her, you say, you give me 9 months of sacrifice, and you have that child, and I'll take care of it for the next 90 years. You give me 9 months, I'll take care of the child for 90 years. Men, stand up for the child in the womb. It's this generation of young men and warriors that'll change and turn the tide. That is the abortion, King Herod of today is Planned Parenthood. I always try to let God tell me how he wants me to close one of these talks. I travel the country. It's a blessing for me to show my weaknesses to others because it sets me free from my captivity and it sets you free from your captivity. The only one that sets us free is Jesus. So this is what I want to do. How many people know who that gentleman is right there on the mural in the back? By a show of hands. Young man, who is it right there? You. Okay. Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro. Born in Guadalupe, Mexico in the early 1900s. The church in Mexico was going through a real persecution during that time. So he and his family moved to Spain, where he became a priest. And when he became a priest, I believe he was ordained in Belgium, what did he do? He went back to the country of his birth that was persecuting the Catholic Church. When one of these beautiful soldiers of Christ walked outside with their cassock, they would be arrested. So the church had to go underground. But what did Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro do? He could have stayed in Spain, could have stayed in Belgium. He went back into the fire to fight for his Catholic Church. They tried to arrest him a couple times. They were unsuccessful. There was an assassination attempt on the president of Mexico. That was their opportunity to get Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro. They arrested him, didn't give him a trial, marched him out, and they were going to execute him. What did he do? On his way out to be executed, he was praying for his executioners. 1. 2, he had a rosary in one hand and a crucifix in the other. 3, when they were about to shoot him, the culture of his time had caught up to him and they were ready to kill him. And what did he do? He reached out his hands and he said, "Viva Cristo Rey." Long live Christ the King. So let's do this real quick, man. We have 20 seconds left. Everybody stand up, please. And turn to your side so you can hold your hands out too, just like Blessed Miguel Augustine Pro. And I'm going to say Viva Cristo Rey, and you're going to say long live Christ the King, and let's wake up heaven, okay? Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ. Come on, Jesuit, you can do better than that. One more time. Viva Cristo Rey. Long live Christ the King. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity of serving you. We thank you for these soldiers of Christ at Jesuit High School. We ask that you bless them, guide them, protect them, lead them to you, Lord, that they may be soldiers in your army. We ask this in your most blessed and holy name. Amen. Thank you, men.